I sat through 9 interviews over 4 months. 9! I took 3 days off work, I completed 2 unpaid projects, I signed an offer letter, and then they vanished. No email, no call, nothing. But 6 months later, I walked into a client meeting and saw my own face staring back at me from their company training video. They didn't just ghost me, they used me.
Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. It was early March when I found the job listing, Senior Marketing Strategist at Vertex Solutions, a mid-sized tech company that had just closed a $40 million funding round. The salary range was listed at $120,000 to $140,000, full remote flexibility, and the role description read like they'd copy-pasted my resume and turned it into requirements. I applied on a Tuesday. By Thursday, I had an email from their recruiter, a woman named Chelsea, asking for a phone screen. She was friendly, professional, and seemed genuinely excited about my background. We talked for 30 minutes, and by the end, she was practically guaranteeing I'd move forward. "Marcus, honestly, you're exactly what we're looking for. I'm going to fast-track you to the hiring manager." That first interview with David, the VP of Marketing, went even better. We talked for over an hour about campaign strategy, brand positioning, market segmentation. He was nodding the entire time, taking notes, asking follow-up questions that showed he was actually listening. "I have to be honest with you," David said at the end. "We've interviewed probably 15 people for this role. You're the first one who actually gets it." I floated out of that Zoom call. This was it. After 3 years at a company that had passed me over for promotion twice, I was finally going to land somewhere that valued my expertise. But then, the process kept going. Interview 3 was with the CMO, Interview 4 was a panel with 3 team leads, Interview 5 was a culture fit conversation with HR. Each one required preparation. Each one meant taking time off from my current job, burning through my PTO, making excuses to my manager about why I needed another dentist appointment. After Interview 5, Chelsea called me personally. "Marcus, everyone loves you. Like seriously, the feedback has been incredible. We just have a few more steps in our process." A few more steps turned into Interview 6, which was a case study presentation. They gave me a real business problem, their actual Q2 campaign underperformance, and asked me to develop a comprehensive strategy to fix it. I spent the entire weekend on it, 18 hours of research, analysis, and deck building. I presented it to David, the CMO, and the CEO himself. The CEO actually stood up and shook my hand virtually. "This is exactly the kind of thinking we need. I'm impressed, Marcus, truly." Interview 7 was a second case study. This time, they wanted a go-to-market strategy for a product launch they had scheduled for September. Another weekend gone. Another unpaid consulting project disguised as an interview. Interview 8 was a meet and greet with my future team. They introduced me to everyone, showed me the Slack channels I'd be joining, even discussed what my first 90 days would look like. By Interview 9, a final conversation with HR about compensation, I was already mentally checked out of my current job. Chelsea walked me through the offer details: $135 base, 15% bonus, full benefits, 4 weeks PTO, remote work 3 days a week. "We'll have the formal offer letter in your inbox by end of day Friday. Welcome to Vertex, Marcus." Friday came, the offer letter arrived. I read every word, signed it electronically, and sent it back within the hour. Chelsea confirmed receipt. "Perfect. I'll get this to David for his signature, and we'll send you the countersigned copy Monday morning. Start date is April 15th. We're so excited." I didn't sleep that weekend. I spent Saturday writing my resignation letter. Sunday, I told my family. My dad opened a bottle of champagne he'd been saving. My girlfriend started researching apartments closer to their headquarters for the 2 days I'd need to be in office. Monday morning, I refreshed my inbox every 10 minutes. Nothing from Chelsea, nothing from David, nothing from anyone at Vertex. By Wednesday, I started to worry. I sent Chelsea a polite follow-up email. No response. Thursday, I called her directly, straight to voicemail. Friday, I tried David's email. Nothing. The following Monday, I called the main office line. The receptionist said Chelsea was no longer with the company and transferred me to a general HR inbox. I left a message explaining the situation, asking someone to please call me back about my signed offer letter. No one ever did. I sent 7 more emails over the next 2 weeks, to David, to the CMO, to the CEO's executive assistant, to the generic HR email, to Chelsea's replacement, whose name I found on LinkedIn. Every single one went unanswered. I was ghosted. Not after a first interview, not after a phone screen, after 9 interviews, 4 months, 2 unpaid consulting projects, and a signed offer letter. I didn't submit my resignation. I quietly unpacked the cardboard box I'd started filling with my desk items. I deleted the apartment listings my girlfriend had bookmarked. I called my dad and told him there had been a delay with the start date because I couldn't bring myself to say the truth. For months, I felt like I was losing my mind. Had I imagined the whole thing? I had the emails, I had the signed offer letter, I had calendar invites for 9 separate interviews, but the company acted like I didn't exist. I tried to move on. I threw myself back into my current job, even though every day there felt like a reminder of what I'd lost. I started applying to other positions, but I couldn't shake the paranoia. What if they ghosted me too? What if I was somehow unemployable and no one would tell me why? And then, 6 months later, everything changed. My company sent me to a client meeting at a new account we'd just signed, a mid-sized tech company that had just closed a major funding round, Vertex Solutions. I didn't even realize it until I walked into their conference room. There was the logo on the wall. There was the same modern minimalist aesthetic I'd seen in the background of all those Zoom calls. And there, on a large screen at the front of the room where they were running a pre-meeting presentation, was my own face.
Okay, I need to stop right here because I'm standing in this conference room staring at myself on screen and my brain is short-circuiting. Subscribe if you think what they did next is going to make your blood boil, because trust me, it will. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in that moment. Would you have said something? Would you have walked out? Because what I discovered in the next 5 minutes changed everything. I stood frozen in that doorway, my laptop bag slipping off my shoulder. On the screen was a polished training video titled Strategic Marketing Excellence, the Vertex Approach. And the person presenting? A motion graphics version of me using my voice, explaining a campaign strategy I recognized immediately. It was the case study presentation from interview 6. They had taken my 18 hours of work, my research, my frameworks, my exact slide deck, and turned it into an internal training module. My name wasn't anywhere on it. The presenter was just labeled as Vertex Marketing Leadership. The video ended just as their team started filing into the conference room. A woman I didn't recognize, clearly their new marketing director, shook my hand and introduced herself. "Thanks for coming in. We're really excited about this partnership." I managed to get through the meeting on autopilot. I smiled, I nodded, I took notes, but my mind was racing the entire time, piecing together what had happened. After the meeting, I excused myself to use the restroom. Instead, I walked toward the marketing department. The layout was exactly as I remembered from the virtual tour during interview 8. And there, in a glass-walled conference room, I saw David, the VP of marketing who had told me I was exactly what they were looking for. He was running what looked like a team training session. On the screen behind him was my second case study, the go-to-market strategy for the September product launch, the one I'd spent another entire weekend creating. I stood there watching for a full minute before David noticed me through the glass. Our eyes met. His face went pale. I walked back to reception, collected my things, and left without saying goodbye to anyone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled up every document I had from the interview process, the emails with Chelsea, the calendar invites, the signed offer letter, and most importantly, the original PowerPoint files for both case study presentations, complete with metadata showing I had created them on my personal computer. The next morning, I called an employment lawyer. Her name was Patricia, and after I explained the situation, she was quiet for a long moment. "Let me make sure I understand this," she said. "They had you complete 2 substantial work projects as part of the interview process. They then used that work commercially without compensation or credit, and they rescinded a signed offer letter without any communication whatsoever. That's correct. Do you have documentation of everything? Every email, every calendar invite, the signed offer, and the original files with creation timestamps. Patricia let out a low whistle. Marcus, this is one of the clearest cases of intellectual property theft I've seen in a while, and depending on your state, the offer letter situation might constitute promissory estoppel. They made a promise, you relied on it, and you suffered damages as a result. We filed the lawsuit 3 weeks later. The discovery process was revealing. Turned out, Chelsea hadn't left the company voluntarily. She'd been fired the same week she sent my offer letter. The reason? She had exceeded her authority by making offers without final CEO approval. Rather than honor her commitments she had made, Vertex decided to simply pretend those candidates didn't exist. I wasn't the only one they'd ghosted. There were 4 others with signed offer letters who never received follow-up, but I was the only one with intellectual property claims on top of the breach. The case study presentations I had created had been used extensively. The Q2 campaign strategy was implemented almost exactly as I designed it, and according to their own internal documents, it had generated over $2 million in additional revenue. My go-to-market framework became their standard process for all product launches. David tried to claim in his deposition that the ideas were common industry knowledge and that my presentation had simply confirmed strategies they were already considering. But the timestamps didn't lie, the metadata didn't lie, and the fact that the training video literally used slides I had created didn't lie. The CEO eventually agreed to a settlement rather than risk a trial. I can't disclose the exact amount due to the NDA I signed, but I can tell you it was significantly more than the salary I would have earned in the first year of that job. It also included a formal written apology from the CEO acknowledging that mistakes were made in the hiring process and intellectual property boundaries were not properly respected. But the most satisfying part? As part of the settlement, they were required to remove all training materials derived from my work. Every video, every framework, every slide, gone. I also got a copy of the final internal memo sent to their leadership team, which included this gem. All interview processes will now require explicit signed releases before any case study work can be utilized internally. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination. They changed their entire hiring process because of me. I'm at a new company now. They hired me after 3 interviews, 3, and the only case study was a conversation about how I'd approach hypothetical situations. No unpaid work, no extended interview marathons, just a straightforward process that respected my time. My start date was exactly when they said it would be. My salary was exactly what they promised. And when I checked my inbox that first Monday morning, there was a welcome email from my new manager with a subject line that said, "Excited to have you on the team." That's how it's supposed to work. If you're going through an endless interview process right now, if a company is asking you to do extensive unpaid work, if you're getting promises that seem too good to be true, trust your instincts. Document everything, keep every email, save every file with metadata intact. Because you never know when you might walk into a conference room and see your own face on the screen.
Thank you so much for watching this whole story. If this one made you angry, and honestly, it still makes me angry, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next workplace nightmare. I know a lot of you have been through similar situations, and your stories deserve to be heard too. If you have a hiring horror story, a ghosting nightmare, or any workplace experience that people need to hear about, drop it in the comments or send it to me directly. Your story might be the next one I tell. Until then, take care of yourselves out there.